Welcome to What's Your Next Move, the podcast for peak performers who are making things happen but are running into roadblocks that prevent them from getting what they want. Whether you work for someone else, you're an entrepreneur, thinking about starting your own business, or at a point in your life where you just can't make the move from where you are to where you want to go, you're in the right place. This podcast is all about answering one question: what's your next move? And helping you harness your power so your next move is the one that changes your life. I'm your host and resident provocateur, Arlene Battisil, and I want to know, what's your next move? Hi there, I'm Arlene Battisil, your host and resident provocateur, and I am thrilled to have my guest today, Virginia Muzquiz, who I had the pleasure of meeting at the New Media Summit a few months ago. And that's actually where a number of my guests have come from in the past couple of months. And they've been incredible interviews that I've been doing, conversations that we've been having about the amazing things that people are doing and the kind of challenges that they've experienced and what they've done to figure out what their next move was, given the rather challenging situations they've encountered. And I was thrilled that Virginia agreed to be on the show with me today because she does something very, very interesting. But I found something that she said in her pitch at the New Media Summit to be really compelling. And it was a story that she told about her father and her daughter and how much of a difference that made for her in terms of what she was thinking about in terms of her own work and her relationships and so forth. And we're going to get into that in a minute. But I'm going to let Virginia talk a bit about what she does. But first, Virginia, let me welcome you. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh my gosh, it's absolutely my pleasure, Arlene. You are just stellar, and I'm excited to have an opportunity to share with you and your listeners whatever you think is going to be valuable for them.
That's brilliant. I really appreciate it. We had such a good time at the New Media Summit, and all of the pitches that the podcasters and business owners were making were really extraordinary, but I was quite struck by a number of the things that you said in your pitch. But first, for the benefit of our listeners, why don't you tell me a bit about what you do? Because I know that you are famously known as the Referral Diva, and you are a master connector. And this is something that will be very beneficial to all of the entrepreneurs who are listening. So why don't you walk me through it?
Sure. So I really believe that the most important capital that we have is our social capital. You can lose your house, your car, your bank account, and lose everything, but no one can take your dignity and your personal relationships, right? So what I do is I work with business owners to help them organize and leverage their network in a strategic way that turns contacts into contracts and relationships to revenue. It's really about using the power of connection, the power of intimacy, and the power of influence to grow a business. And when you do it right, you can build a multi-six-figure business and hire the help that you need and attract ideal clients to your business in about a third of the time it takes to go out and event yourself to death at networking meetings.
Wow. Now, how does this work for people who are just starting a business versus those people who've been in business but still are not yet at a point where they've been able to scale their business, and someone who is already quite successful? Is what you do different for each type of person, or how does this work?
No, it's pretty much the same process. What changes or what's different is it's actually easier for me to help someone who doesn't network, who doesn't even know how to do it, who comes to me and says, like, I have 2 connections on LinkedIn and 4 friends on Facebook, and I have no clue what to do. It's a little easier. It's kind of like a golf instructor. You know, if you've never swung a club before, you don't have any bad habits, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a little easier. Somebody who wants to scale, that's really my niche place. I love helping people who are caught in what I call the time money conundrum. So you want to make more money, but you need more time to do it. And you don't have any more time, so you can't make more money. And if you want to get time, you have to hire somebody to do stuff for you, but you don't have any money to hire them, so you're stuck. You're just plateaued and you're stuck and you can't see a way out. And that's a place where what I have to share is really important. And then, I work with enterprise level business owners as well, who are just kind of sick and tired, and they're sort of the biggest fish in their networking pond, and they want to jump to a bigger bowl. So it works for getting people sort of out of the network that they feel might be anchoring them and holding them back, and getting them into a place where they're with folks that are more stimulating for them and have more resources. 6 basic steps. It's fairly easy. The first one is define your tribe. That comes from Seth Godin. It's all about figuring out who you are as a person, what are your core values, and what can you provide that no other competitor can provide, and who would want it, and really getting clear about who's going to follow you, because you're going to be a leader of that tribe. The next part is establishing yourself as the leader and creating a trusted authority platform, which starts with claiming your authority and then communicating that authority, and then creating community around that authority. And so we work on that. We talk about designing a team. A lot of folks think you've heard of the sphere of influence or center of influence concept, where, if I'm a mortgage lender, I want to have a bunch of real estate agents around me. Or if I'm an insurance agent, I want to have a bunch of, really financial planners, for example, around me. And I want to have this sphere of influence. And we kind of start to assume that, like, if I'm a payroll person, I should just go to CPAs because every CPA should want to refer to me. And it just doesn't work that way. And so we have to figure out, first of all, kind of what are the professionals that are kind of out of the box that could refer to us based on who the tribe they serve, rather than what the product they deliver, or what they actually do. And then once you've kind of designed that team, you got to figure out a way to interview them, onboard them, train them, track them, and move them in some sort of a system where who's producing for you, who's working for you, who just wants to be your friend, and who actually wants to help you grow your business. And so we work through that 6-step system with any person that's a business owner that wants to learn how to either build or leverage their network.
And how, this is going to probably sound like a stupid question, but I'm sure you've encountered it before. How does this work for people who really feel themselves as introverts?
If you ask me, it's actually the best system ever, because the real nature of introversion is just not getting your energy from big groups of people, but rather really, really pulling energy from an individual interaction. So whereas extroverts tend to have a network that is a mile wide and an inch deep, introverts prefer to have a network that's an inch wide and a mile deep. And the reality is that folks that have you need a little broader than an inch, but really, if you've got 8 really solid connections, you can really do quite well. And in the system that I use, rather than running around and doing big group things, what you're doing is I'm saying, like, hey, Arlene, who's somebody that you need to know? Like, what are you trying to solve? What do you need to do? And then I'm going to introduce you to one person, and you're going to meet with that one person and have a conversation and begin to develop a relationship with that one person. So for the introvert, it's actually ideal. I can teach you how to meet new people on LinkedIn, so you never have to leave your house if you don't want to. And then when you build up these spheres of influence, if you're smart, you diversify a little bit. You get a couple of, I call them pollinators, busy bees, the ones that are like, well, let's go to the networking event, buzz, 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 buzz. So true story, you won't believe it, but I actually energetically am an introvert. And yes, I talk fast and I think fast and all of that. But when I get in those big crowds of people, I'm just friggin' exhausted. Is it okay if I drop F-bombs on your show?
You know me well enough to know that it's a routine for me. So whatever the fuck you want to say, you go right ahead.
We didn't establish that before we started recording, so I thought I would ask so that I could be on my best behavior.
All over the place. Your F-bombs are welcome on my show.
I don't want to get bleeped out later. Okay, so the idea is, I just hate it. It's like so fucking overwhelming, and everybody's like, "Well, Virginia, I want to talk to you." I'm like, "Oh God," right? So I really. Like, get off of me, right? So I really am a little bit more energetically. I'm a little bit more of an introvert. So much so that this is hilarious. So everybody likes to call me the networking queen, and I'm like the referral diva. Well, isn't that the same thing? No, because I don't enjoy networking. So if I have to go to a networking event, I take like a Busy Betty pollinator and I sit on a chair with a glass of Chardonnay and a plate of cheese and I send them out to find me people. I'm like, okay, go fetch. And they're like, okay. Oh, I found one. Come here. You got to meet Virginia. And then I talk to the person. I'm like, oh, hey, it's so nice to meet you. Tell me what you do, whatever. And then they're like, okay, who should I get now? Right? I mean, because I hate it. I flipping hate it. So I know that sounds like, and then literally diva fits, right? Woman of extraordinary talent. And yes, I do like a bowl of green M&Ms in my dressing room. Thank you very much. So you know, I guess the answer to the question is it'll work for everybody because the steps are fixed, right? Like define your tribe. You have to do it. Find your tribe. You have to do that. How you go about doing that, because we have social media and because we have opportunities to connect with people online and through video, and you know, you can do a lot now that you couldn't do just even 10 years ago if you're an introvert. Networking has actually gotten easier for the introverted.
Wow. Now, I'm curious about something where you talk about yourself as an introvert. Now, anyone who's listening to the show is going to say there's no fucking way that Virginia is an introvert. So walk me through how it is that you see yourself as an introvert, and, you know, forget about all of the stuff that goes on around, you know, referrals and networking and being at live events and getting your pollinators out there and doing all the things that you just talked about. How is it that you, Virginia, with all of what you put out in the world, are actually an introvert?
Okay, so I know you're gonna say this is fine, so I'm just gonna get like super real. Okay,
that's the idea here.
Yeah. All right. So growing up, I was always lonely. Like I always needed company, and I always I would be in my room playing by myself, and I would just wish that I had a friend, or I wish that someone would play with me or whatever, right? So in some ways you say like, well, then you're not very introverted if you don't like spending time with yourself. Well, actually, the only introverts that like spending time with themselves are introverts that actually have a healthy opinion of themselves, right? So, you know, I lived a life of a lot of feeling isolated and bullied and depressed. And God, after I had my kids, I was suicidally depressed, and I was depressed in college, and, you know, and I experienced a lot of loneliness and a lot of need for people. And what I discovered about 6 or 7 years ago was that I'm not an extrovert. But what I did was I subjected myself to wanting to be around lots of crowds of people because I could lose myself, and I didn't have to be with myself, right? I could just I was looking for other people to be with other people and kind of like glom onto their energy or whatever. So I didn't have to be with loathsome little me. And I had a massive breakthrough about 6 or 7 years ago. I was at a retreat, and it was a speaking retreat, and a speak to sell retreat. And so I stood up and I delivered my thing, and they went around the circle. It was an intimate kind of thing with 20 people. And they were like, would you buy from her? And like all 20 people were like, fuck no, I would never buy anything from her. And I mean, obviously my little baby bear feelings were hurt, right? Because everyone's like, not only no, but like, fuck no. And then they're trying to give me feedback around why that is. And I'm like, I'm losing my mind. And sort of the world started to spin, and I couldn't see. And then one of the facilitators said, hey, do you mind if I lay hands on you for a second? I just want to try something. And I don't know if you know the expression side body long. Have you heard of that? Okay. No. So side body long is like when you lift the space between your hip bones and your rib cage to like maximum capacity and like really elongate your spine. Mm-hmm. And then you tilt your chin, and it pushes your heart forward. Mm-hmm. Right. And when he adjusted my posture, I started screaming, it hurts. Oh my God, it hurts. And I was just like, I was in this big anxiety panic and whatever. And I ended up sitting in a chair for like a day, crying. They just like set somebody next to me, like, are you done? And I'm like, no, I can't stop. Like for hours and hours and hours. Had a massive atypical migraine that mimicked they thought it was a stroke. And I was like, no, it's not a stroke because I can actually think and I can actually speak, but like I couldn't move. And they're like, it's a stroke. And I'm like, no, it's a migraine. And we're on this mountain in Vancouver. And like, so then, I remember like there's all these healers and they're doing Reiki and anointing me with these like Young Living oils. And I'm thinking, oh, you bitches, get the fuck off of me. Right. But I can't talk and I don't want them touching me. And I don't want, I didn't want people around me. And I just wanted to be alone. And then finally I fell asleep. And the next morning I woke up and we were all in silence. And my roommate like wrote down like, what the fuck was that? And I wrote a list, Arlene, of about 70 words that ranged everywhere from, bitch, victim, carpet, like play toy, like C word, B word, it was just this list of loathsome, and I handed her the list and she was like, well, what's that? And I was like, that's me. And so then she wrote down, and it's funny, I have the loathsome list by my bedside, but I have the other list, the list that she wrote for me, in my office, and it stands on my wall, and it says strong, worthy, safe, respected, beautiful, proud, goddess, accepted, admired, appreciated, loved, wanted, desired, connected, supported, powerful priestess, assertive, embraced, free, whole, revered, expansive, healed.
Wow.
And I looked at the two lists, and that led to a great deal of confusion. Mm-hmm. And then that morning there was a ritual. It was trance dancing. If no one's ever heard of it, it's Wilbert Alex. It's a tribal dance, like shamanic thing. And he's like, yeah, a lot of people, you can meditate yourself kind of down to zero, but then you lose it, right? Like meditation is very hard to kind of maintain the zero sum. Mm-hmm. So what he does is he does this tribal thing and it literally shorts you out. So you just go ecstatic and like pass out, right? And I did this ecstatic dance thing and woke up and never needed company again, never needed it. It's not that I don't love it or don't desire it or don't enjoy it, but I never needed it again. And so the answer to your question is, yeah, I'm outgoing and I'm energetic, but I get my energy with individuals. That's when I most recharge my battery, or in the solitude of yoga, meditation, subspace, those kinds of things. so it's just that sort of, the place when I'm just alone in my head, alone with myself. And that's really, people think that introverts aren't friendly and that we can't network and that we don't like people. I love people. I just don't want to be around 100 of them. And I don't really want to be around people that are like, oh, this is going to sound so mean, like needy people who are sucking the life out of everyone around them because they're not taking personal responsibility for their taking care of themselves, Right. So that kind of stuff, it really drains me. Right. So that's, I could do it as a workshop leader, and I love my people. And, anytime you're leading a workshop or anything, you're going to have moments when people are really like that. It's just hard to be like that at a networking event, for example, or as a participant.
Absolutely.
So, that was really honest and kind of revealing.
And of course I have to go there.
That's good. I'm good. I'm good.
Well, what I'm curious, there's so many things that you said in there that, I'd love to explore with you. And I'm curious about what it was about you coming to a place where you no longer needed to be around people. What was the relationship between that and what was on the original list of all the things that you were describing about yourself? What was the relationship to the things that were on the list in the beginning to why you needed to be around other people or had this desperate need to be around them? What was it you were seeking out of being with other people that was going to soothe you in some way, given what was on that list?
It really was when I was with other people. So I'm When I was with other people, it distracted me.
Mm.
So when I was sitting by myself, right, what I was feeling was all the feelings of being loathsome and unwanted and unseen and undesirable and ugly and fat and I never thought I was stupid because I'm really smart. So that one I always had confirmation. I knew that. Like, but smart wasn't good. You know, like smart made me unpopular because I was intelligent, but it showed up as know-it-all.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it, you know, I was always trying to, you know, see me, look at me, see me, look at me. A lot of it goes back to my parents. My mom lived a really abusive life with her dad. And, you know, that's just such a sad story. And so, you know, she just never really recovered from the domestic abuse in her house as a child. And, my dad was just an entrepreneur and he was just working all the time, you know, and he was doing what a 1950s, 1960s, 1970s dad did, right? Like they went out and provided for the family. And my mom was June Cleaver and she cleaned house and stayed home. And, you know, to this day, if I asked her for the electric bill from, you know, July of 1968, I'm pretty sure she could walk into the closet, even though she has Alzheimer's, and find the damn box and give me the bill. You know, it was just on the outside, it was just a really traditional, you know, life. But I grew up without a lot of friends. We grew up out in the country in New Jersey. Yes, there is country in New Jersey, or at least there was when I was a child 50 years ago. And there just, you know, there weren't a lot of kids to play with. And, you know, if you wanted to have a play date, sometimes the closest kid that was might be available to play might be 40 minutes by car away. So, you know, like it just wasn't easy. I didn't live in a subdivision. In fact, I'm old enough to tell you that subdivisions didn't exist where I lived. Right. So the first subdivision that was ever built was built when I was 10 years old. And I wanted my parents to move into a subdivision so I could ride my bike with all the kids and have friends, you know? Right. So it was just that. I think it was just being lonely and being unseen and internalizing, I think, some of the genetic memory from my mom's experiences, right? And kind of just feeling really loathsome and figuring out that's why I was alone. I was alone because I was awful. Right.
And what is your earliest recollection of feeling these things?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I can think of a couple. I was probably 3 or 4 years old and I was homesick and I had just gotten done watching Kimba, the White Lion at 3:30 on the UHF channel. And what ended up happening was I wanted my mom to play with me and she was ironing and she was like, not now, I'm ironing. And I remember feeling like, what the hell? Like the shirts are more important than your kid. Like, right. Like mommy should want to play with me. Right. Well, that's true. And I'm not going to say that my dad was an abusive person. But, you know, when he wanted his shirts done, he wanted his shirts done. And it's like, you know, woman, what do you do all day? You can't even get my shirts done, right? Like I'm out working all day. I need a white shirt because I got to go to the city and I don't have my shirt. You know what I mean? I need to eat dinner because I got to catch a train to the city because my dad would work all day in his office, come home, get changed, like have dinner, get changed, hop a train, go to the city, be the operations manager for his data processing thing. He rented, computer time in New York City. And then my mom would roll us out of bed at like 4 or 5 in the morning and throw us in the back of the station wagon and drive, 30 minutes north to the train station, pick them up, bring them home. We'd all have breakfast together. And then he would do it all over again. Right. Wow. So, it's not that my dad was being a jerkwad or anything. It's just that, he needed his damn shirt and he needed his dinner because he was on a schedule and he was trying to make it as an entrepreneur and he was doing what he had to do. And so my mom was always kind of sort of stressed out about that because he was always stressed out. And then when he was stressed out, I'm sure he was triggering stuff in her from the way her dad would come home and, and abuse her. So I remember another time wanting a Barbie townhouse. And Larissa Small got the Barbie townhouse. I must have been 7. Larissa Small got a Barbie townhouse, but I didn't. My mom gave me some cardboard boxes, some carpet squares, some glue, some wooden spools, like, when spools of thread were empty, and maybe some tongue depressors or something, and told me that I could make my own Barbie townhouse, and it would be even better than that because I was so creative. But I was like, wow, I'm not worth a Barbie townhouse. Well, my parents were like dirt freaking poor. They were entrepreneurs bootstrapping life. Right. There were some days we ate fruit off the fruit trees from the property. It was like,
Right.
So, but I didn't know we were poor. They didn't talk about it. And so, I remember interpreting that as like, I'm not worthy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm worth a cardboard box. So
Right.
yeah, I had a big one. It was really weird. I had a big one over the weekend because I'm like still processing a lot of this crazy stuff. I had a big one over the weekend, like being in my room and playing with baby dolls and just wishing that I had a friend and just being sad with those baby dolls. So I just felt really lonely, I think. And I just never really felt seen or acknowledged.
Right. And it's really interesting that you talked about that event where there was this physical release that you experienced. And what I was thinking when you were talking about it or telling that part of the story was that it's clear that your body was holding all of these memories and these experiences and these emotions, and that you'd actually been harboring them. And I don't mean that in a negative way.
No, they just were stuck.
Yeah, they were there for your entire life. And when you're carrying around all of what was on that list and all of the emotions that are associated with it, how did that manifest in your life as you were growing up on into adulthood and on into once you went into business for yourself?
So probably the first time I can remember experiencing really clinical depression, like those kinds of symptoms, was when I was in sophomore in high school, and it persisted through my senior year in high school, and then I went away to college, and that sort of newness shook that off a little bit. But then, man, by my sophomore year, I had it again. Throughout between middle school and high school, so backing up there, when I grew up, I was the third fattest kid in my whole class. By today's standards, I would have been considered fairly thin, but back then, there was a girl named, oh God, I can see her face, Kathleen. And then there was a girl named Kim. Kim probably weighed 250 pounds. Kathleen probably weighed 180, and I weighed 134 pounds. And I'll never forget standing on the scale in 5th grade and having Mrs. Hintz, the gym teacher, scream out our height and weight for someone to record. So everybody knew what your number was, right? And getting just laughed at. And so between 7th and 8th grade, I went on the Atkins diet, and I got down to 104 pounds, went back to school. Nobody recognized me. And everybody started treating me a little bit differently.
Right.
Because I'd lost 30 pounds and I wasn't like ugly, chubby girl anymore. And I figured, whoa, that worked. So I just stopped eating altogether. By my sophomore year, I probably weighed like 90 pounds. And I guess it was probably my junior year. No, it was my sophomore year. I started going out with a boy who was Italian, and his mother was like, "You will eat meatballs." So, so if it hadn't been for my beloved Stephen Hill, who broke up with his girlfriend to go out with me to save my life.
Wow.
And I will forever be grateful to Stephen, and then to Katrina, who let him break up with her and wasn't resentful about it. So,
when you're on a mission to save someone's life, I guess you can be, generous.
I don't know, like sophomore girls in high school, like give me a break, right? Anyway, so, so the clinical depression, I experienced a rousing bout of that my sophomore year in college, and then I got married, and I had bouts of it, just struggled with it. And then, man, after I had my daughter, that was just hell. Oh, God. You remember that lady in Texas who drowned her kids? She drowned 5 kids. Yeah. And everybody's like, oh, my God, we never, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, until you have heard the voices in your head, shut the fuck up. Literally, they'd be better off if you were just dead. They'd be better off with God. They'd be better off if you weren't around, right? Like, I literally was trying to figure out, I spent probably 3 years trying to figure out how I could kill myself and not fuck them up. Like, I was really aware that, like, if your mommy commits suicide, you probably will be fucked up for the rest of your life. So I was trying to figure out how I could just get myself off the fucking planet and not mess up my girls.
Wow.
I didn't find a way. So I went on Prozac, which was awesome. You ever been on Prozac? That stuff is luscious. That's great. Literally, someone could chainsaw your dog and you'd be like, whoa, let me get a rag. that shit. I was like, get me off this shit. Look, I'm a little bit of a passionate person, introvert and all, but I'm like, I fucking feel nothing about stuff I should be horrified at. Get me off this shit. I'll just kill myself. It's fine. I'm going to kill myself for not fucking caring. God.
Oh my God, you definitely are in the ranks of the best stand-up comedians, Virginia. That's for sure.
I should fucking go on the road. I just like don't think everyone else thinks I'm funny. My family's like, "Oh, shut up, you're not funny." But I'm serious. Like, it was just the worst. So, you ask how it manifests. There you go. You want more? Like, I want more.
Well, I mean, if you were to, and certainly you've examined this a lot in your life as you've been, coming to terms with these things and, going through a younger period in your life where you were feeling as badly as you were about yourself, and then coming into adulthood and then experiencing these things that, are such a shit show because you're so desperate in that moment and feeling like there's no way out and there's no hope. Do you have any sense of whether there was one particular feeling that you had at this moment in time where you were feeling like, I just don't want to live anymore? Were you ever able to pinpoint, I feel X and therefore there's no point in living anymore? Was there a particular specific feeling that you had?
I was just exhausted, Arlene. I was exhausted from feeling loathsome. I was tired of hating myself. I was tired of feeling like I was hated by everyone. I was tired of not having friends. I was tired of feeling like nobody cared. I was just tired. I was just tired. I was just fucking exhausted. And I just, if there had been a way when I could have just laid down and said, okay, God, it's time, and just not woken up without having to do something drastic that like people would be like, why would she have done that to us? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, that would have been the way to go. Aside from the Prozac, all joking aside, can you talk a little bit about the moment where everything changed for you? And everything that you've been talking about is the description of a person who goes down a path. They've started in a place that was, didn't have to be bad, but was very unfortunate for a young child to be feeling what you were feeling at such an early age, and then carrying that through your life and just feeling this desperation and so exhausted from living a life that way. Can you talk a bit about the moment where everything changed for you, your perspective changed, your sense of there being some hope that it was worth it to do something different? And what did you think the outcome would be?
God, I don't know that I even have an answer for that. Look, my girls they're 21 and 23 now, and they're my heart. And I think that loving them really, really made a difference, to me. Like, I lived for them. And I lived for the love that I had for them. True story, really funny. If you want another comedy shit show, it's pretty funny. So one day, like, my youngest she's like the Tasmanian devil, man. Like, she was my challenge, and I was depressed and she was out of control and I was out of control. And she would make me so angry. She was super smart and super curious. So she would do like really dumb shit that would like endanger the whole family. Like, cut through light cords with scissors or, stuff like that. God. And I can't even remember. I remember standing in the front hall of my house and I was about to lose it all. And my oldest daughter, Nicole, says to her baby sister, who's like, 2. So Nicole's 4, Megan's 2. And she goes, Megan, let's go play in my room because mommy's about to have an episode. Like, it was so frequent. Just to give you an idea, like, sometimes it was crying fits and sometimes it was pillow punching, right? Like, a lot of it showed up as like rage. And I had rage in myself against myself, and then it would show up as rage outwardly, right? Mm-hmm. And so, darling Nicole, ever the pacifist, like, let's go play in my room. So one day, Megan had made me so angry that I really feared that I was going to reach out and I was going to hurt her. And I had made the decision that given that my grandfather used to beat my grandmother, that I would never lay a hand on a child, right? Like, I would never do it. So I went in my bedroom and I locked the door and I started screaming at the top of my lungs, and I'm like punching the pillow and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, and the girls are scared out of their wits. They're like, Mommy, what's the matter? Right? And they're knocking, Mommy, come out. And I'm like, I can't come out right now. And I'm punching the pillow. And I'm screaming and I'm punching the pillow and I'm like in this rage, like this just tornado rage. And Megan goes, come on, Mommy, you have to come out. And I'm like, I can't come out. I'm in timeout. And Megan goes, you can't be in timeout. You're a mommy. Right? And this is all transpiring through a locked door while I'm punching a pillow. Okay. And I go, I can't, mommies can too be in timeout. God puts us in timeout when we want to hurt our children. Right? The next thing I hear Nicole go, come on, Megan. And she takes her, like, my bedroom, there was a wall in my bedroom that butt up against her bedroom wall. And this is what I hear. Dear God, my mommy's a good mommy. My mommy would never hurt us. She's a good mommy, and you shouldn't put her in timeout like that. Because she's a good mommy. But God, if she does want to hurt us, we know you can stop her, and you could let her out of timeout because she's a good mommy, and she could take us to the park.
Oh my God.
And I went immediately from punching a pillow to pissing my pants. It was like,
out of the mouths of babes.
Dear fucking God, she's a good mommy and you're a bad God because you put her in timeout. But wait, if she really is a bad mommy, you can fix her and then we can go to the park. All right then.
There they are negotiating with God.
They're negotiating with God to go to the park because they have a good mommy, right? And I think, I'll tell you, as weird as that sounds, that moment, like I can't say that I knew it at the time, but it stands out in my heart as this moment, the first time somebody believed in me more than I believed in myself.
Yeah.
You know, like my girls saw me, not the raging lunatic, not the psychopathic, depressed, voices in the head, crazy batshit mom that was just trying to keep her crap together. Because, on the outside, Arlene, you know what I look like on the outside, right? I'm like all me and I'm all like, woo, together, businesswoman, super badass, all that, right? Like, you know, but my girls saw me.
Yeah. But what's so interesting about that is that it sort of sums up the entirety up until that point, because going back to your mother ironing your father's shirts and her not wanting to play with you and the other experiences that you've shared, it all seems to have been about you feeling like you weren't being seen.
Yep. Yeah. And I won't lie, like today, that is still like the big soul wound, right? And so I remember going to a workshop with Callan Rush and Justin Livingston, and Callan stood up and she's like, guys, if you really want to know what your calling is, figure out your soul wound. And then go do the thing that heals it, right? So what do I do for a living, Arlene? I get people to look at me. I get people to listen to me. Nobody ignores me now, you know? When I go to a room and I stand up at a mic, everybody looks at me and they just shut the heck up and they listen. I'm like, damn, how do I do that? Like, how did that happen? Right. But that's, again, so introvert, sure. With a big old soul wound, see me, choose me, love me.
What's also interesting is you've chosen to do something that not only meets your need to be seen, but is actually compassionate about other people and what you may believe is their need to be seen. And you facilitate that, which is really, really an extraordinary gift and so generous And that's really remarkable as what has come out of this lifetime of your pain that you are making possible for people to have what they want, to have the life that they want, to be able to experience the things that they want. And you're facilitating all of that, and it's all happened out of your own pain.
Well, I think that, there's a lot of, I don't really call it pain as much as I call it the soul wound, right? Like we all come with something. It's the not enough, or I'll never have enough, or I'll never be enough, or, we've all got a thing, right? We've all got a thing. But, I've come to realize a couple of things as an entrepreneur. And this weekend I was out at Jay Fissette's Mastermind to Millions, and it was fabulous. And a guy named Jason Gaynard was there, and he does this thing called Mastermind Dinners, and he created this workshop called Mastermind Talks. And, at this one point, he lost every last thing that he had. And he said, when I said this earlier, I think, they can take everything, but they can't take your friends, right? Like they can't take your network. They can't take your connections. And I've often said, like, the reason I do what I do is because of the because of the impending shit show, right? I mean, I want somebody to hide me in their wall. So the notion that the highest form of vibrational currency is loving connection with others, meaningful connection with others. And when you're invested in that highest space, that highest form of vibrational currency, the other kinds of currencies show up. Mm-hmm. Right?
Absolutely.
I have a friend who lost everything, and I mean everything, in the housing bubble. Mm-hmm. Is completely homeless. And somehow, right around the time when all the money runs out and, maybe she's not going to have a place to eat, somehow or another, like a coupon to go eat at an all-you-can-eat buffet at the casino shows up. But she's really connecting with people. She helps people. She loves people. She's not so worried about all the material trapping stuff in life. And the interesting thing that Jason Gaynard said was that, instead of trying to earn a bunch of money buy a bunch of shit with money he didn't have to impress a bunch of people that he didn't really like, mm-hmm. right? He just decided, what is it that I want to do? How do I want to live? What do I want my average day to look like? What do I want a week to look like? What do I want a month to look like? What do I want it to look like? And then he just went about building the relationships he needed to make those things possible.
Right.
Right. And so for me, everything that came out of his mouth, I was like, yes, yes, yes. I was having workshop-gasms, yes. People were like, you are nuts. What the hell's wrong with you? I'm like, amen, brother, preach it, So, that being said, this other thing that I'm really hot to share came out of my mouth. And it goes like this. Success as an entrepreneur is built on a strong foundation of failures, fuck-ups, and frustration. And if you're not willing to depersonalize that stuff mm-hmm. and not make it about your soul wound, it's just a given. Shit happens, right? So you're going to have a daily dose of frustration and fuck-ups and people fucking you over even, taking your money and making it crazy stuff. And then at the end of the day, you got to put your head on the pillow and put your smile on your face and be like, and I own this shit show, right? It's just, God, I am lucky. I failed 4 times today. I fucked that up so bad. And I want to punch a fucking pillow, but I own my shit show. I am so blessed, right? If that's not how you work it, go get a fucking job. Mm-hmm. Go get an hourly, go get a wage, clock in, clock out, work for the man. It's okay. You're not bad that you do that. It is not bad to be a not entrepreneur.
Right.
The only time it's bad for you to be an entrepreneur is when you really aren't one. You don't have it in you. It's not, you can't eat frustration for breakfast and be like, yum, right? Then go get a job. It's okay. The world needs people that can do that. And then the only time it's really stupid to have a job is when it's fucking soul sucking and you're like, I'd rather work 100 hours and own my shit show. Mm-hmm. So Amen. It's not about, success is it's about just being who you are, loving what you do, and not, and just embracing what is, because otherwise you end up on Prozac, and that's just like no place to be. That shit is the worst.
It was a place to be, but
oh my God, it was like the fucking Twilight Zone. Like, just put me in a box. I'll just sit cross-legged and rock back and forth. Drool. Oh, yuck.
Oh my God.
Look, I don't want to bash. It was a good thing I took them, because I really was ready to hurt myself, and that was a really bad thing. But getting in touch with the fact that we have emotions, but we are not our emotions, and you can feel those things and just be curious about them. Like, oh, that's really curious. So, I don't say like, oh man, Arlene, you just pissed me off. I go, Arlene, that thing you said curiously makes me want to claw your face off. I wonder what that's about.
That's clever. That's a very effective way of getting your point across. In a way that
is it your fault that you said it? It's not your fault that you said it. And I was telling you this just a little while ago. I'm talking with a friend, like, hey, what do you think is the most important marriage vow? Obey. You've got to be fucking kidding me, right? What? Okay, now we are not friends. I cannot have this conversation with you, right? Well, yeah, but when you unpack what it means, and what it means to me is an oppressive, domineering, abusive prick that forces you to do shit you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And in this guy's definition, it's you are the captain of the ship, responsible for everything, you provide for everybody's needs, and all you ask is that they please like flush the toilet. Like, okay.
I can get on board with that.
I can do that. That's cool. Wait, let me get this straight. Like, you're going to give me everything I want, and all I have to do is honor your reasonable requests.
Yeah, sounds pretty fair to me.
Okay, I can do that. I'm in. Bring it. Yeah. Like, right? So at the end of the day, like, we really screw up our relationships because we pack words with our own meanings from our own set of circumstances, from our own genetic memory, from our own history. And then we like beat the crap out of somebody who actually didn't mean any of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it happens all the time in our relationships. And we aren't even aware that that's what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I mean, everything you just described in the last 12 seconds, I think, is worth $1 million or more to people if they could actually understand.
You can send that to PayPal at virginiareferrals.com.
I'll put that in the show notes.
Please send. If this advice was worth anything to you, I would love your donations. I'm crowdfunding. I don't know what I'm crowdfunding. I'm crowdfunding my awesome lifestyle.
And the 3 F's that you must embrace if you're an entrepreneur.
Yes, if you want to pay me, if you want to just pay me for that wisdom, PayPal me some cash.
That works.
Virginia at revupyourreferrals.com. I'm with you, babe.
That's beautiful.
Don't you send me any money requests though, because I won't be like, no.
Well, you know what? We don't have a lot of time left here, and I mean, we could sit here talking about things the whole night, but
just have me on again in 6 months. It'll be fun.
No, it'll be sooner than that. That's for sure. Yeah. But I do want to come back to one of the things that I said at the outset of our conversation, and it was about the story that you told in your book at New Media Summit about your father and your daughter, and it was such a compelling moment during that event. And if you'd be kind enough to share that story, I think it would be really wonderful for people to hear.
Yeah. So it all kind of speaks to the reason that I do what I do in the world and the work that I do, and why I feel like the work that I do is really important, but also is really soul soothing for me. And that is, when I was about 12 years old, I bought my first journal. It was a steno notebook with some like crazy 1970s flowers, like you see on the back of the dating game, I opened it up, I flipped it open, and the first words I ever wrote in a journal were, I hate my dad and he hates me back. Mm-hmm. And that was really predicated on the fact that my dad was never home, and I wanted him to be there for stuff. And, he just, in my perception, Arlene, because, the reality and the perception are two totally different things. So please, everyone who's listening, please understand that my dad was a decent human being who provided for his family, and he made it to what he could. Okay. But at my 12-year-old adolescent brain was saying, again, I'm not worth his time. Mm-hmm. And that was the story that I think I came born with that soul story. So, everything you just start piling, you think a thought and then you just start piling the evidence.
Absolutely.
Right, on it. So I need to put it out there because I adore my dad and I don't want, I never want to throw my dad under the bus. Right. So, so the perception of the 12-year-old me was that my dad loved work more than he loved us. And that that wasn't okay. And it made for a very troubling sort of, teenager, high school times. I was very angry with my dad. And, he was doing the best he could and he was building a business, but he got caught in the time and money conundrum, right? Like he couldn't scale the help fast enough. And when he was scaling the help, then he had to go out and beat the bushes faster to be able to make the payroll, so he was always sort of like scaling the business and beating the bushes. And he was a rainmaker. My ability to speak, my ability to sell, my ability to magnetize comes from my dad. And he just did what he did best, but he had to travel a lot to do it because we didn't have the internet in 1977. Right? So you got in your car and you drove somewhere and then you went and knocked on doors because that's what you did.
Of course.
And so he was gone a lot. So fast forward, I'm a teacher. I decide that I'm going to go to grad school because when you get sick of teaching, that's what you do. You go to grad school so you can get a higher degree so you can teach like even more spoiled bratty people. And then, so I went and got a degree and then I had my first child and I had my second child and I was like, my children are never going to think that work is more important than they are. I'm always going to, I was a Mary Kay sales director. I took my girls everywhere with me. Like I would go on, recruiting calls with people to tell them about the Mary Kay opportunity. And my girls would have sister meetings and we would write out an agenda and they would have like an agenda, like we're going to color and then we're going to read like the Dr. Seuss book. And they would write out an agenda, what they were going to do. And then I gave them money and they would go to the little bread co-counter and, get their whatever and sit down and have their sister meeting while I had my grown-up meeting. Right. And so I was, it was great. Well, at one point, I became a Mary Kay sales director, but I was so infatuated with the trappings of success in Mary Kay because you know what happens when you're successful? They pin crystal bumblebees on your shoulder and you walk across stage and you wave and people see you and they clap for you. So man, I'm not saying that's a bad organization. I'm just saying that's like giving crack to an addict, right? Like it was really bad. And so I ended up really kind of buying my permanence in that directorship position until I just maxed out too many credit cards and the whole thing fell apart and that was a shit show. And I had to go get a job and I got this job with a local tutoring franchise and I won't throw anybody under the bus for that because the gentleman who was my boss is now my client and we've been friends forever. Right. So this is he's not a bad person. So let me just say that we're going to go through this part without throwing people under the bus because again, perception is everything. Mm-hmm. In my perception, I had to work 24/7, 365, like all the time. I built a No Child Left Behind division for that franchise from $0 in 2005 to $2.5 million in annual revenue in less than 5 years.
Wow.
And I did it all by word of mouth. And it took a lot of energy and a lot of effort. My youngest daughter, Megan, is a gifted artist and a gifted musician. And she had wanted to play trumpet from the time she was in third grade. She saw Chris Bodie at a jazz festival. And she looked at him and she's like, Mr. Bodie, I'm going to play the trumpet someday. And he said, I believe you will, play the piano, blah, blah, blah. Well, we get to 8th grade. We go see Chris Bodie at the Fox Theater. And I say to him, hey, he always comes out to meet people. And I say, hey, Mr. Bodie, I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember a little girl who came up to you and gave you her crumpled up allowance? And you wrote this is the CD that you wrote the message on. And he goes, yeah. He goes, oh yeah, that was in like Clayton, right? And I go, yeah. And he goes, I said, this is her. And she'd like to play something for you. And he hopped off the table and he said, go for it, baby, right? And I think he expected her to be like, do, da, 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 right? Like, no, she plays one of his signature pieces. It's called For Lisa. So if you've never heard this piece, she plays the first, 20 measures of For Lisa, and his jaw drops and he goes, oh my God.
Wow.
Oh my, like, he's like, first of all, like, grown ass people have a hard time playing that, but she played it and played it and played it and played it and tried it and played it and figured it out and figured, right? Like, she was diligent because she really wanted to do it. So we get to high school, and that corresponds with right around the time when I'm starting to build this No Child Left Behind division, and I'm rocking and rolling and I'm raking in the dough. And I mean, it's getting good, and I'm providing for the family, and I'm covering all that debt, and I'm cleaning up my act and whatever. Right. And then one day she just stops playing trumpet. She just quits. And I'm like, baby, what do you mean you're not going to play trumpet anymore? And she goes, what do you care? It's not like you come to the concerts.
Ouch.
From there, it got steadily worse. We don't have a lot of time to get into the whole story, I don't think. But she went prodigal. I lost her for 5 years. But she's back, and she's a new mom. She's got an 8-month little boy. His name is Kingston. He's fucking adorable. He's my heart. He's got the most beautiful smile. Love his little sparkly eyes and his little sassy little personality. And she's back, and we've healed our relationship, and we've been through a whole lot, and all because of me falling into that pattern, and it doesn't have to be like that. Like, shit, you got to get your priorities in order, and no amount of money in the world is worth your child turning to drugs to soothe her pain and running away from home. It's just, there's no amount of money in the world that's worth that. Not saying I caused it, not saying it's my fault. I'm just saying that, I watched history repeat itself, and, I have talked with my girls ad nauseum. I'm like, hell be damned. Do not do it. No amount of money is worth that. Design a life that you can live with, and that your child knows that you are there 100%, and that work is never more important than your kid, and making money is never important than your kid. And, a big motivation for me right now is, having a daughter who is now a single mom and has an hourly wage job, and making sure that baby knows he's loved,
Yeah.
And I'll drop work in a heartbeat. And I run 3 businesses, girl. I'll drop it in a heartbeat. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. It's grandma day.
Yeah.
I'm out, So yeah. I think it's just that to me is, so my work in the world is really to teach entrepreneurs to design a life and then build a business that sustains what they really, truly want according to their priorities. And then to do that in relationship with their community.
Right. Right. And that's such a great point, which is that you decide the life that you want, and then you figure out the business or work that is going to support that. And it is always the other way around. And the mistake that we as entrepreneurs make, that we, start down the journey of being entrepreneurs, and it exacts such a huge toll on our life and on the people in our lives and the relationships that we have, all in service of the almighty pursuit of this thing that we're doing. And I think that it's really devastating in many instances when the choice could have been right from the start, to start from the viewpoint of, okay, what kind of life do I want to have, and what do I need to do to have that life or create that life for myself? So I'm really glad that you made that point, because you have a choice about how you go about doing this. And as is often the case, we get an idea and we just start pursuing it, and we never consider the consequences of what it is that we're doing, especially on the people around us. And we're so headstrong and determined, as entrepreneurs are, to make a go of it and to make it successful, that, this other piece really has to be factored in. And I'm so grateful that the relationship with your daughter was restored. And I'm sure, well, as you said, it was a huge wake-up call for you that, this is not something that's going to be repeated. And you were clearly going down the path where that was going to happen. And, after all that you'd been through and then accomplished, to end up back in a place where you were basically witnessing the same thing that you had experienced. I mean, what could be more devastating than that?
Yeah. I mean, and I'll tell you just, we have it back assward. And if people listening get nothing more than that, you design your life first and then build a business that facilitates that life, and Arlene, I know we have a couple of seconds. Could I finish out with the positive end of this story? Because I have my Mother's Day card from her in my hand.
That would be magnificent.
And I'd like to read it because I think it also shares with people like, okay, remember, your success in business and your success in life is built on a foundation of frustrations, fuck ups, and failures. But that does not like condemn you to misery, right? So here we go. So Kingston is 8 months old. So we got ourselves kind of straight up about 18 months ago, right? So here's what she wrote. She said, "Mom, this past year has taught me a lot, not only about myself and how to be a mother, but a lot about our relationship. The things that never made sense are now crystal clear. All those times I wondered, why the hell would she do that? Suddenly they all make sense. My whole life, I dreamed of this relationship with you. And up until now, I thought it would never happen. But we've worked so hard to get to here, and I wouldn't trade everything we've been through for the world. You are a most amazing mother, and I am so blessed for getting to raise my son around you and with your guidance and your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your dancing heart with me. I love you."
Oh my God, that is so magnificent. Oh my God, that is so wonderful, Virginia. What an amazing way to come out of all of that. And this is where you end up. And what's so remarkable about it is everything that you just wrote actually is all about you being seen.
Yeah.
How amazing.
Yeah. So
wow. I love that so much.
Isn't it awesome? Yeah. So, like I said, my girls are my inspiration. They are my heart. They have seen me when I felt invisible, and they have loved me when I felt my most unlovable. And, boy, we have rolled around in the muck and the mire together. And, it's a beautiful thing. And you really can heal your heart, and you really can use your business to heal your heart and heal other people, and that determination changes everything.
Oh my God, it sure does. Wow. What a magnificent conversation we've had, Virginia.
Oh God, blessed to have gotten to go there.
Wow, this has just been so great. I've loved every minute of it. And for our listeners, if they'd like to know more about you or get in touch with you, you've got just so much to offer entrepreneurs in so many ways. Where can they find you?
Well, you can throw money at me on PayPal and or email me at virginia@revupyourreferrals.com. Or if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how you can cultivate your relationships and, keep the people that you meet close and really create value with them, you can go to www.masterconnectors.com/follow-up and download my Faithful Follow-Up Guide. And that will give you a tried and true proven methodology for really keeping the people that you meet active in your network and making sure that they feel seen and heard and cared about by you so that they will keep you top of mind and refer their friends and family and the people that they meet to your business.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I suspect that you're going to be hearing from our listeners, quite a few of them, because what you've shared is just so tremendous. So I just want to thank you so much, and I look forward to having you back on the show again.
Thanks, Arlene. It was a joy.
Beautiful. Well, there you have it, everybody. A magnificent episode today. I'm so thrilled that we had this time together. I hope you enjoyed it. And as I always wrap up every episode, I ask you to think about where you're at in your life right now and what's your next move. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Arlene Badasil, and I'll be back with another episode. Welcome to What's Your Next Move, the podcast for peak performers who are making things happen, but are running into roadblocks that prevent them from getting what they want. Whether you work for someone else, you're an entrepreneur, thinking about starting your own business, or at a point in your life where you just can't make the move from where you are to where you want to go, you're in the right place. This podcast is all about answering one question: what's your next move? And helping you harness your power so your next move is the one that changes your life. I'm your host and resident provocateur, Arlene Badasil, and I want to know what's your next move.